The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing this morning?
I got my coffee.
Same.
I got a coffee so I got a little blue.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the blue because you know how I feel about things that match.
Yeah.
And we came together today and we look good. I'm like, this is nice. It's a beautiful day.
Yep.
Things are moving. So in the letters, we are in the hundreds, which just makes me so happy. This is episode 110. Name to be determined, because I like the name that you picked out, but we're listening to you narrate the letters today. I think will kind of give me an idea of like what we're going to name this episode. So we are still in April. We're in April of 1952. And so the letters today. Oh, the letters today. See, I did make some time to read the letters today. I wasn't lazy. In the letters today, we actually get to learn a little bit about Lou's family. We get to actually see what's going on with Lou's family, because we've been focusing a lot on Jean and on Chester, and we know that Dit and Bob went to Florida.
Yes, they did.
We're planning a trip to Florida, and so now we get a little bit more of what's going on with G-Mom and that side of the family. So that was nice. That was a nice little change of pace for me today.
Yeah, and just on that note, just for our newer audience members here, because we're going to dive right in with what's going on with G-Mom, okay? And also during the credit reel, if you're watching the YouTube video, you see the big family photo, right? And that's all of the Graham side of the family and the Browns, which of course Lou's sister married into. But just to go through it real quick, because we're going to hear all these names immediately. Lou, of course, Sweetie's husband, he had 2 brothers and a sister. Now, one of his brothers passed away in the 30s. That's Sammy Jr. His father was Samuel Graham Sr. His father is gone. So who is remaining on his side of the family is his brother Joe, who's living in New York with Marguerite. We've got his sister Elizabeth, or Aunt Betty, or Dit, as we've just mentioned, goes by all these different names. And Lou gave her the name Dit because when he was young, he couldn't pronounce Elizabeth. That's how that happened. But it really fits, and I think we're going to figure that out in today's episode. And then his mother's Sydney, with an I, not like Australia, Sydney with an I, and she's known as G-Mom Graham, Grandmom Graham. And Dit and her husband, Bob Brown, who's also a junior, whose father is Bob Brown Sr., they're at this newspaperman's convention in Florida for like 2 weeks. The family, G-Mom Graham, and her 3 grandchildren, Dit's children, are in Norristown, Pennsylvania, which is the county seat of Montgomery County. So it's about 30 to 40 minute drive from Doylestown for Sweetie to get there. They have 3 children who are all very, very young. I believe that Bobby, her first son, is like 3 or 4 years old at this time period. Then she has another daughter, little Marguerite, who really can't be more than like 2 years old at this time period. And then we have also M.E., which is a little baby. So G-Mom Graham has been abandoned by Dit so she can go party in Florida at this newspaperman's convention. We know she's not at the business of the newspaper.
But she's not at the business.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
No.
She's partying it up in Florida, and she has abandoned G-Mom Graham with the 3 young children, and Sweetie's going to have to come to the rescue in Norristown. I'm just going to jump in here. Please like, share, and subscribe to the Love Sweetie podcast on YouTube. Follow, download our our podcast on your preferred audio podcast platform, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, whatever it is.
Preferred audio podcast platform.
That was a lot.
I'm sorry. Well, preferred.
Yeah. Yeah. And I should say Apple Podcasts, not Apple Music. But yeah. So moving on. This is a little urgent, I think, is to find out, is Sydney, is G-Mom Grandma, is she okay? The answer is no.
363 North Main Street, Doylestown, Pennsylvania, April 26th, 1952. Dear Mama and Papa, and all you here now kids, and Aunt Rosanna, I have had my hands in at least 3 or 4 different and entirely unrelated jobs this morning, and just quit in the middle, leaving them in midair. Let's hope for more patience in this letter writing. I have just received Papa's letter dated April 23rd at 3 p.m., Aunt Rosanna's dated April 24th, 2:30 p.m. Both came straight mail, so that will give you an idea of the time required for their arrival here. Makes me realize I've slumped in my writing, and so shall make an effort to get something in Mama's mailbox by Monday morning. I'll send this airmail, maybe, depending on the number of stamps in the till. First, about Lewis. He seems to be just fine, except for a slightly runny nose, a cough, and a tendency towards an earache. I kept him in bed from Monday the 14th until Tuesday the 22nd, which was a lovely warm and beautifully sunny day, and as I was working outside and enjoying it, my conscience just wouldn't let me keep him in. I waited until the sun was shining fully, and then got him up and dressed and outside. His spots had faded, but were still pretty plain at that time. They faded quite rapidly, and on Thursday, which would have been the day he could return to school, but couldn't as they were having some sort of teachers' meeting in the city at the university, I took him and went over to Norristown to give G-Mom a hand with the house apes. I had to stop and buy him a pair of shoes, as these are just kaput, and didn't get there as early as I had intended, but it was before noon anyway. I found poor G-Mom in a state of near exhaustion, and if there were times several years ago when we were constantly in each other's hair, it was enough to make me ashamed and feel genuinely sorry for her. Elizabeth, who has a charming house, luxuriously furnished, was, of course, busy in getting clothes ready to go south for 2 weeks, and had last-minute sewing to do, but since she has always left things for her mother to do, and I partly blame G-Mom for Elizabeth's unconcern for everything, she didn't worry about the housework or ironing or anything else. The house hadn't been cleaned, Elizabeth had washed, but left the kids' clothes unironed, and they were running low. All 3 of them set up a rather tuneless wail, and G-Mom was nearing distraction. She heaved a sigh, and I honestly believe for the first time in the near 9 years I've known her, slung an arm around me and said very sincerely, "Am I glad to see you?" I seem to have the same effect on Elizabeth's kids as Jean's glare has on sister's kids, and I have recently found out that they threaten 3-year-old Bobby that they'll tell Uncle Lou on him if he isn't good. The idea is cruel in my opinion, but I must say it brings results. Well, since I'm part of Lou's family, he is also in some awe of me. Well, the work wasn't such a problem, for Elizabeth has a nice house, and the equipment to get the work done, if one could wade through toys, kids, and diapers to get to it. I got her lunch for her, since she was nearly groaning with fatigue, and I doubt if she's taken time to cook for herself, except an egg, when she thinks of it. I did the dishes left over from the night before while they ate, and then grabbed a broom, dust mop, and dust rag and went upstairs, got Marguerite's room done fairly quickly, and then stuffed her into bed, dashed to do Bobby's and stuffed him into bed, threatened Lewis with everything in the book if he woke either of them, and since the little baby is a scaredy cat, I couldn't do much for her, but left it for G-Mom to feed and get to bed. I had the bathroom, Elizabeth's room skimmed, and the stairs dusted, and then gave the first floor the very dickens as quietly as I could. The more I worked, the more I was surprised and amazed that Elizabeth would expect her mother to do so much work, while she was off making like a bride. She did offer to get a colored girl in to do the cleaning, but G-Mom is thoroughly convinced that anyone outside the family would rob them blind, or else poison the kids, and tired though she was, would muddle through before she'd let anybody into work. The kids slept unusually long, which was fine for us. We got G-Mom's room ready for Marguerite and Joe, who were to come over this weekend. G-Mom has to sleep in Elizabeth's room to look after the little baby, as she doesn't sleep the night through. We got the room ready for Marguerite and Joe, and then I went downstairs to dust and run the sweeper and put things away. I swept the kitchen after a quick supper, and then did the laundry and hung it in the cellar, and Louis and I got home at 9 p.m. Thursday night. I brought the ironing along and got up real early on Friday to do it, and then we ran over again last night after I'd done her shopping for her here to take clothes and groceries and meet Marguerite and Joe coming in from New York for the weekend. We got home way late last night, and that probably accounts for my several jobs well started and immediately stopped.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely relate to getting 3 or 4 jobs started at the same time.
Yeah.
And then just abandoning all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But it does sound like it was almost expected that the rest of the family would be coming. The rest of the family, Joe and Lou, knew that they were going to have to go over and help their mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we do remember Sweetie and Lou did live with Sydney and Samuel.
Yep.
For a time when she first came out here. So
yeah. And Samuel was pretty sick at that time. I mean, we only got to hear about Samuel in the letters, and Sweetie only got to know Samuel on like 2 visits, I think, before he passed away, because she married Lou on December 3rd of 1943. They visited in 44. They visited again in 45. And then he passes in October 45, about a month after little Louis is born. But at that time, he was deteriorating. It was pretty clear that there were some scares and things. So Sydney had her hands pretty full, even then. So she's been through a lot. But for Dit to be doing this, I mean, it's the commentary from Sweetie is spot on where it needs to be. She's acting like a bride, just saying, I'm going to get my clothes together and go. And look at all that needs to be done. Now, what's also really fascinating here is she's running around. She's getting a lot of work done. And I don't know. I do the same thing, which is like, if I'm helping someone else, I'm getting a lot done. But when it comes to my own stuff, I'm like, it's just accumulating. It's piling up. I'm behind. But we can see in one day, she gets a lot done. She hasn't gotten that much done at 363 North Main based on any of the letters that she's written. She's like, yeah, I've just been writing letters today and I don't want to do laundry. That's basically like the vibe. Here she does the whole like 2nd floor of the Norristown home.
Well, she did clean, like, and we didn't get like a rundown of it, but she did say she got the motivation to clean the downstairs at her house, and the upstairs really needed it. And so, and you're right, like with somebody else, it's just a little bit easier because, and it feels, there is a feeling of accomplishment when you do things at your own house. I'll get the dishes done, and then my son will walk in and like put plates in the sink and stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's a never ending thing. So it almost feels like the word I want to use. It's fruitless. No, that's not it. What is it?
I think it's something like that.
Futile. Yeah. That's the word I was looking for. It feels futile because it's never done. But when she did it at Elizabeth's, then she got it done, and then it was like clean as far as she knew when she left. So that's that. It's a different feeling.
I was cleaning my kitchen the other day, and by cleaning my kitchen, I mean I got like this one corner like reset to like like factory condition in my head, and it's very, very smooth. Like when you run your hands against a counter and it's like you don't run into anything, you're like, ooh, this is nice. And I would just stare at this one little corner and be like, well, I got that done. And then maybe I'll get the other side done over here and put more things away and do that. And it'll be like, if it's both done, whoa. I actually just ordered
that doesn't happen. No, I do the same thing, like where my stove is and all that. I clean it and then I just face that way.
Right.
And if I turn around.
Yeah, like I'm just ignoring it. I'm like, this looks great. This was good. This was progress. That's why it's just like progress.
I'm looking at it. It looks clean over here. So the rest of it's probably clean over there.
Yeah. And now I've got to run off and do something else over here. So it's like half finished, whatever. It's going to be clean. My sister actually, she's getting married in a couple weeks from the date of this recording. We're recording this on Saturday, May 30th. And now there's like a deadline because like families coming in from outside of town, which is good. That's the motivator to like finish the rest of it. Is whenever I'm like, and my dad's like, I don't know, you got a lot of stuff to do. I'm like, I know, but there's like a deadline. It's gonna help me. with my mindset. Yeah, I'm gonna listen to some podcasts and I have a lot of work to do. But that's essentially what she's doing. You know, some things never change.
No, but also G-Mom, because Sweetie has said before that she's like, I don't understand why they don't hire help to clean.
Right.
And G-Mom apparently put the kibosh on that because she didn't want anybody in the house. And G-Mom, and they didn't grow up like with like things and like, living at the status that the Browns were living at. So I'm guessing maybe she probably doesn't understand or have like, she feels a little bit apprehensive about having somebody else come in. So that's
Yeah.
kind of on her too.
Yeah, absolutely. But then we get into this next part of this section. The first half of this letter is really everything going on in Norristown. We talked about the house and the things that needed doing. And then she indicates something. She's indicated a couple things about the kids here. One, it's like, I clean the room and put them to bed. And I clean the room, put this one to bed. Like, she's got to keep track of these kids, who she is lovingly and affectionately referring to the children as the house apes because of how much they're running around the house, causing havoc for poor G-Mom. And that's her reference specifically in this letter. And I think she uses it again in one future letter. But it's always in reference to the children running around and being kids. And so we're going to hear some more about that runaround in part 2 here.
Bobby, at 3, is such a Dutchy talker, it is nearly impossible to understand him. Little Marguerite is a doll, and as cute as any kid could hope to be, is actually nicer and perhaps smarter than Bobby, but they are neither of them slouches. The little baby seems pretty much content by herself and isn't such a troublemaker, but it takes time and energy to lug a big fat kid ready and get bottles made up and washed, etc. Elizabeth did get diaper service, which is a godsend, but she must have thought she was making the supreme sacrifice in so doing, for that seemed to be the extent of her preparing for the trip. With the diapers taken care of, that is a big help, but the house apes seem to find more things to get into than you could imagine. She got little Margie up from her nap and got her dressed and put out into their nicely fenced yard, and didn't she find the outside faucet and just practically drown herself before G-Mom heard the water running? She stripped her and started over, and didn't the kid do the same thing over again? Lou called her up and told her how to turn off the water down cellar, but by that time the wet and dirty clothes were mounting. She got into the diaper container and picked out the deodorizer cake and just crumpled it up like salt all over the floors. By that time G-Mom got wise and collared Bobby with this threat. The next time she gets into something like that and you don't come and tell me, I'll give you the whipping. Since then, Bobby has been telling in time to prevent complete destruction of the dishes and groceries in the lower shelves, but let's face it, only to save his own hide. He won't mind for nothing. If she calls him, Bobby, come here, he just makes like a deaf post, and she has to go and grab a hand and yank to get him in motion. Not me. I walked around the corner where he stood, just baiting her, and said, Bobby, did you hear your grandmom? And when he said, yes, I said, with my sternest look and most sergeant-like order, march yourself in there and find out what she wants. He said, okay, very cheerfully, but he couldn't hide the fear in his eyes. Yak, yak, she said she wished I'd been there all the time and saved her some trouble. Funny, I've never laid a hand on him, and if he is in trouble of some kind, he'll come to me for help or a head to rub. But when I give the order to frog, he leaps all over. Well, when I left there at 8, or shortly after on Thursday night, the house looked like the fashion plate it had been copied from. The clothes were hung in the cellar since it was raining, the water emptied, and the washer all put away. The dishes were done, and all she had to do was make up her bed with clean sheets for Marguerite and Joe, and get to bed, and she told me last night she just fell in. I had to get up way early on Friday morning to press Lou's uniform to stand inspection, and while the iron was hot, I did her ironing for her. All those little bitty baby dresses were time-consuming, but not hard, but I felt like telling her she was making more work for both of us to dress her up in dresses to lay in bed all day. Then I did her shopping and some work of my own. All the time I was working over there, I said to myself, you big goof you, if you worked like this at home, your own house wouldn't be rolling with dust. I made up for some of that yesterday, even though I had to take time out to mash and pin up my hair as it was straggling like a tired old string mop. And while it all sounds rather foolish, I must say I had a rather nice feeling for having worked myself into a tizzy for her. For she was dreadfully tired and worn, and what the heck, the dirt won't hurt us too bad till another day or two, and I'll get it done sooner or later. This helped her out of a pretty deep hole, and so I felt it was worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
That is nice.
Yeah.
She loves G-Mom.
She does, yeah. And, she sympathizes with Sydney. And then we get this information on, like, the first times we really see the real characters of Lewis's cousins. So, my dad has maintained a phenomenal relationship with little Marguerite. I think to him, he considers her like a sister. And I love that she says, I think little Marguerite, she just can see things. Little Marguerite seems to be smarter than Bobby. She's going to be smarter than pretty much everyone on that side of the family. She's going to succeed very much in life, but she credits a lot of that to her relationship with Sweetie. She's made that very publicly known. That, I think Sweetie was there so much and had such an impact on all of their lives. Bobby passed away a while ago, but he was a nice guy. I think he turned out okay. And then, but we see sort of like the rascal. So we've got like the rascal, we've got like the smart kid. Of course, there's this stuff about like she's drinking this water, and then it's the classic scene of just like the moment you turn around to do one thing, they've vanished and they're into something else.
Mm-hmm.
So that havoc. I remember there's a scene in Full House, I think, where there was like that music playing, and they're like running in and out of the doors, and like people are chasing after, and here comes the next kid and just running around. That's basically what's going on in Norristown. And then there's just this little baby as well. That
like throw a little baby in the mix.
So,
and I have to wonder what Elizabeth does all day.
Right. Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem to me like she really does much of anything, like when it comes to cleaning, or does she cook? I don't know. I mean, we are seeing her getting ready for a trip, and my family knows, found out very early on, if I'm getting ready for a trip, like that day, that week, you don't want to mess with me. I'm busy. Yeah. But of course, I planned stuff. It seems like Elizabeth was really only concerned about herself. And the way that Sweetie was like, this was a great sacrifice for her to even schedule the diaper service.
Yeah. Yeah. Like all you had to do was call someone up. Like, she has a phone. They're well off. So
yeah, exactly. So like she really didn't do too much to get her house in order, her affairs in order. She kind of left that all to her 70-some-year-old mother.
Yeah. And then she mentions the little dresses. She's like, why are we changing the dresses? Midway through the day, they're just sleeping in them. And then there's all these little, like, because, Elizabeth's going to dress up little Marguerite, especially to the nines. So there's all these little lace pieces because she's a little princess, So it's going to be like that. The image in my mind is of Gone with the Wind in the opening. So when you get, and I think that's where Sweetie's mind is probably here too, where you see the beginning of the film and then they go to the party at the Wilkes house. And what are the ladies doing? It's like midday. They're all dressed up. But before the ball at night, they get changed. But there's that whole like 3 hours where they just lay there and they nap. And they change and they take off the big dresses. And it's just all this work for everybody else. And that is what Did is doing with like a 2-year-old. It's just like, oh, well, she's going to sleep and then we're going to change this. And there's all these little things, all this little ironing. It's not just like, oh, iron fast, something like that. Lou's uniforms are also probably, they take a little more time because there's all the different lapels and all this kind of stuff. But you're doing that for a 2-year-old. Except it's not. So G-Mom's
she's like treating her like a doll.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Like and it's just making a lot of work for her.
And then as a result, Sydney's so busy, the kids are very clearly undisciplined at this early age. And what gets them? The Jean glare. She said, look, I remember, we've talked about this. I remember that Jean glare. I know exactly what she's talking about. So she was given to Bobby. Nope. No, it was very fascinating to me, the differences between my grandparents. My mom's mother, she was like a matriarch. But she didn't have the glare down. You could get away with some stuff with her. You could get away with some stuff with her dad, with Poppy. I love my grandparents, but they didn't have that glare down. Maybe they did for some of the cousins. Not for me. I never really like responded to it. Sweetie, especially if Aunt Jean visited. Oh, I know what that looks like. I wish one day, I think when I hit a certain age, I'm going to be able to reproduce this glare. That's like going to be a goal of mine. And like, Bobby, what are you doing? Like, I just know. And clearly she would have gotten that from her family and from Sydney. So, but Bobby's baiting stuff. He's looking to cause trouble. So
Well, he
different
doesn't.
from how good Lewis is.
He doesn't. Yes, and that does come up later. Like the juxtaposition. I love that word, and I will use it till I die. Of their personalities, but Bobby was never taught respect. Like you can tell clearly because he doesn't respect his grandmother at all. He knows he doesn't have to. He has learned how he can get his way and not have to do anything. And so he's going to do that. Not with Sweetie though. And the fact that they have this like different opinion of Sweetie and Lou, like they definitely, like the kids look to them. Well, I mean, I don't know about little Marguerite because she's like 2, but she's old enough to get into the water faucet. That was fun. I'm sure she enjoyed herself. The fact that like Sweetie and Lou are more authoritarian, like, that's a horrible word to use. They're more strict. Yeah. They require like better manners and things like that. Then that's how they see them. That's how they see them. And they've learned that they don't need to be that way with their own parents.
Sweetie is coming off dealing with little Ruthie at the school like a week earlier, which, by the way, I asked my dad, do you remember this little girl in first grade named Ruthie? And he's like, yeah, I remember her. But moving on to the next part, we're going to leave Norristown now here and return back to Doylestown.
Well, if I've let my housework up, I've surely been knocking him dead on the outside with work. Lou and I together dug up the cave and made a brick border all around it. And now as soon as this northeaster blows over, I'm all ready to plant the portulaca. I bought and planted some carnation seed. I think Mama likes them, and I made a small bed which I call Mama's Carnations. There will be Jean's and Sister's portulaca and my garden. I went out and planted some more garden, or perhaps I wrote you about it in the last letter. I've got onions, peas, radishes, 3 kinds of lettuce, carrots, beets, spinach, broccoli, and I guess that's all so far. We had the back lot plowed up, and I got me another nice healthy dose of poison ivy from the roots that were exposed, and that I pulled up to get my rows laid out straight. Jean, it doesn't do any good to pour gasoline around to try to kill poison ivy when the leaves aren't out yet. I can't identify one root from another, have been careful to wear gloves constantly, but the juice on the gloves is transplanted to my forehead when I grab at a lock of hair that I can't see through, or bat a fly or bug off my ear. I've little spots of it here and there, all over, from just such contacts as that. I bought 2 pair of gloves, so that I could wear 1 pair while one is being washed, but I usually pick up the wrong pair and just transplant and reseed where one case is beginning to get well. Everybody who comes past stops to compliment us on the improvements we've made, which is, of course, an encouragement to further efforts. I went out and pulled up some of the vast bed of ivy that she planted, so I wouldn't have to have so much grass mowed, and it was just about to take the lawn. The trailers got into the mower wheels, and we'd have to stop and untwine them, mow and repeat, as while she was busy I just went out and dug and pulled and dug and pulled 4 great big wheelbarrow loads of vines and debris from the side yard, trimmed the remaining bed, which I left to cover the cesspool, to a nice round bed, and Lou has said he'll spade up around it for me so that I can plant some Lilliput zinnias around the outside of the ivy. I went out with a spading fork and dug up 3 wheelbarrow loads of wild onions, which were just taking the lawn where the ivy wasn't. Now, we're ready to seed that too. We have a vast number of ferns in the yard. I wonder if you'd like to transplant some sometime. They are lovely, but more than that, they are such fun to watch. They look like great big fat green worms in a bunch, and the next day or two they have unrolled into ferns like those blower things the kids get that you blow out and let roll up. Ah, well, I'm tired. You figure it out. I'm sick of these daffodils. Do you hear? Sick, sick, sick. I-L-L. I was sure they were trumpet daffodils. Well, you saw what they are, and they just don't appeal to me at all. So I hope to be able to order some real nice ones, like the King Alfreds from Henry Field this fall, and put a whole row of them along the stone wall that runs in front of the house. The iris we set out are just looking fine, but I'm going to have to get out there and do some weed pullings, and a little cultivating around them. Miss Darst never fails to make remarks about our working outside. She calls it nonsense to do so much to make more work for ourselves. Just gave us the very old Ned for digging up her cave, and I don't think we could hurt it if we wanted to, which of course we don't. She found me pulling up the ivy that I planted, as though I were blaspheming her for pulling it up. As I wrote to Sister, when I sent Aunt Rosanna's last letter on to her, it is most discouraging to have to battle to make improvements. We haven't done a thing yet that wasn't a marked improvement. Eventually she has to admit it, but until she does, she gives us a hard time all the way. She started in on us about the cave, and I was thankful that even Lou got sore enough at her to tell her we were filling in that dry well that she has heretofore maintained was the finest in Bucks County, and said all we need to do was to put a pump on it, and we'd have all the fine water we needed for drinking, washing the car, or anything else we needed. We've been trying to fill it up, more or less secretly, since we knew she would say we were making a mistake and we'd be sorry. You mark her words, tack, 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 as we feel it is a serious hazard for Lewis and neighborhood kids. And when she started in on Lou about the cave, he told her she might just as well forget about it, for we were going to do what we could to make improvements and fix up around here. And then when she said she saw him out around the well, and what was he doing out there? He told her he was filling in the well. She started in on that too, being pretty well wound up about the cave, and he cut her off right short that the well was absolutely bone dry, and he was going to fill it up. Period. She doesn't argue nor say such snide little things to Lou that she does to me, and when he shut her up, she soon decided she had things to do, and went off upstairs to her room to mumble to herself about young fools who didn't know when they were ruining things. Incidentally, Lou is taking out all the old brick from the well to use in making the flower beds, etc. I called to see about buying some used brick for the work, but found it was hard to come by and too expensive, besides, and we decided to utilize what would ordinarily be waste, and so Lou is taking it out. It is a nicer color than the new brick and conforms to the old and larger size. There are 40 bricks per circle in the well, and we don't know just in fact how deep it is, but if they come out as well as they are now, we'll have a nice stockpile of brick for garden edgings and repair work, or walks, where they need to be patched. I agree with you, most of Miss Darst's trouble is sheer cussedness, but there is an undeniable mental problem that I'm positive is not due to the ravages of old age. From the family history I've read, it has been handed down from generation to generation since the first Will Price came over on the boat. The more I live with her, the more I pity that older brother who was at her mercy for so many years. A drunkard. I wonder that he was ever sober.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And again, like, this was her home. This was hers. She had boarders before. Now she is the one who is the boardee.
Yeah, she's the boarder. Yeah.
She's the boarder. She's the boarder. This is her house. They're doing things that she doesn't want done. But
That's right.
a lot of it is the well's dry. You know, she just wants to complain.
It's a hazard. That's it.
Yeah. And she just likes to complain. And I love now how Lewis is like, you know what? Shut up.
Yep.
We're going to do stuff and you can just deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a wreck out here. Like, he sees his wife covered in poison ivy, trying to get stuff done. It's like one more thing and one more thing. It's like, yo, cut it out. Enough's enough. And he decides to disregard her and just go about, even though she's like, we're kind of secretly filling in the well. It's not really secret. Like, they're filling it in. What is Miss Darst going to do?
This is the point. What is she going to do? She's just going to complain and make people and be manipulative. She can physically can do nothing.
Yep.
Legally, even less.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Like, so, and all the neighbors are like, oh my God, thank God this hazard's going out of here. Because if one of their kids runs through the yard, you can fall into this well. And it's surrounded like by ivy and all this stuff. No, it's just a mess. It just needs to go. And he said, look, there's no more water down there. You can't just put a pump down there and it's going to do things. Absolutely not. And Sweetie's coming from, of course, a farming area. They've got a gardener. Like, everybody's probably saying the same thing. No, this is not going to work. But she has to complain. That's what Darst does. She's just being Darsty. Then we get into the gardening. So she's planted some vegetables. I was really happy to see that. And moving ahead. She liked the daffodils when she wrote her daffodil poem a couple episodes ago. Ain't nothing like a daffodil. Now she's not a fan of daffodils.
This is the daffodils, like, and I know in this area at least, are like ruffled or double. Like, I don't have like that. My daffodils are not like that typical kind that I think everybody is familiar with, where it's like one large petal and then like the trumpet comes out. No, they're all different. So she's probably got like the ruffly ones and stuff. And I have to tell you, I'm not a big fan of them either. They're so heavy that they fall quickly. But yeah, so I like how she's like, and then the Lilliput zinnias, like I have some of those too. Like I love this. This gets me in the mood to be outside.
Yeah, gardening. Yeah, a lot of gardening. They're getting a lot of work done. So definitely progress on the property, despite Darst's opinions to the opposite, to the
and
other.
She knows. I think this is really just her holding on to like just her reality, which is just changing every day, and she's just trying to keep some semblance of like her life and the power that she had. She clearly had, was able to like make people jump and do stuff, and now Lou's like, no, I'm good, you're good, why don't you go mumble somewhere else? And she did, and because she doesn't really have anything and a leg to stand on. So I'm glad that Lou stood up to her. We had the finest well in Bucks County. Did you?
Treated. Maybe at one point. Maybe in the 1800s. Who knows? But not right now. And it's dry. So, no. So we're going to hear more about the well, though, in some future content. It's a big well. This is going to take a lot of time. They're going to find ways to, again, sustainability for Sweetie and Lou. It's such a big subject right now. They're going to find ways to reuse items and things. When they continue to dismantle the well, there's going to be some more about that coming up in some future episodes. So the drama about the well is not over. The Darst portion about complaining about it is, because, yeah, that's it. She can't move forward. But we have one more part of this letter, Jamie, from April 26th.
Well, back to Lewis. I'm treating him with aspirin and sulfa for the cold and threatened earache, and since he feels all right otherwise, think he'll be able to go back to school on Monday the 28th. Jean, you do me far too much credit on being able to diagnose the measles. I didn't, but since I'd received warnings that measles were making the rounds in school, and by the way, there have been upwards of 6 deaths in Philadelphia this year from measles, and since his little sidekick Sally broke out with them just a day or two before, it was reasonable to suppose that's what it was. I read up on it in the Merck manual, but actually scarlet fever didn't frighten me. In fact, it didn't occur to me. See, I'm honest, if not very smart. Papa, I do have your questionnaire, and I intend to get the answers written, but as you see, I've been kept on a hot rock and had to jump to keep my feet from burning. This northeaster had threatened for a couple of days, and I was anxious to get as much outside work done as the poison ivy would permit, and hence let the writing wait, and then when G-Mom got into a hole, I had to give her a hand, and you partly paid for it. I do have the page of questions, and will try to get at them soon. Patience, patience, patience. Your letter this morning was reassuring as far as the heart condition was concerned. However, I've about decided the army doctor had given me a fairly clean bill of goods, and so decided my worst enemy was my imagination, and when I'm busy outside working harder than I would in the house as far as manual labor goes, I am so busy cussing the ivy and battling Miss Darst that I don't give it a thought and don't notice any disturbed rhythm until at night when I've quieted down after the supper chores are done. I notice the cut down on coffee was a very marked improvement, and therefore do not allow myself any more than 2 cups during breakfast, and when I think I'd like more, I just don't. I haven't had any Dexedrine either since I wrote you I'd started dieting, but took some to help G-Mom, and so today noticed the disturbed action. I had some Friday and today, but it is surprising how extra well I felt with it all. But still more aggravating is the fact that while I've cut down on potatoes, bread, fried foods that would be greasy, and, well, the things I like best to eat, I can't say I've lost 1 single pound, and so I shall try the fat medicine as you directed, and see if that will help me some. I must say that not knowing just what the trouble was gave me a great quantity of food for thought in this heart situation, and I shall save this letter from you to refer to from time to time. I shall not worry if you don't, as the doctor seemed to minimize it to a great extent. Your graphic explanation was good and helped me also. I couldn't find it in the Merck manual, and so had little to go on until the doctor described it, and now your letter, which is really a better explanation that he gave. However, after my scare, I am more in sympathy with you than before, and for a time felt that if the army doctor told me I'd have to cease work and vegetate, I'd about as soon throw the sponge as be one. I'm learning, though, that my worst fears are usually groundless and get along pretty well, one way or another. I hope you'll find Bill's fears are as groundless as mine. I wish I might have shared the chicken and cherry pie you had while they visited you. I was interested to hear of Dee and the kids. I'd love to hear him talk. I wrote you that Bobby Brown is so hard to understand, but one thing about him, I see no reason for him to learn to talk if just, will get what he wants, and it usually does. Well, that answers in a sense at least today's letter from Papa. I want to thank Aunt Rosanna for the pictures of her grandchildren and the nice letter. To do it justice, I will not try to answer it on the tail end of this one, but will try to do so in the very near future, as well as Papa's questionnaire. I wonder how she's gotten my letters at all, as the address I've been using is far different from the one she sent on this letter. I'll try to answer it real soon. Jean, I always seem to leave you till the end, and you get the small end of the stick, but we'll try to make a few comments on your last letter, leaving the earlier ones to answer soon. Who am I kidding? You surely have received word about the rings by now, or did I dream I wrote you about them? Louis wears the small one initialed LG on his little finger. The one Louis written out fits his ring finger all right. It did not fit the largest finger as we hoped it would, but he is delighted and wears them both at once. Thank Glenn for us, won't you? We did not pay extra postage on them. You move too quickly from one case to another. Are private duty nurses few and far between, or do you just like to keep at the work? Who are the friends who are willing to rent the apartment? If I may stick my nose into your business, where it will be most unwelcome, don't take it. As you put it, it would be straining a friendship, and you'd be sorry in the end. Louis has been wanting to go fishing, and so I think when Lou can get some time to spare the antiques, and we'll take him up to the Delaware and try our luck. I don't know myself. Has to take everything so hard, but as I wrote you some time ago, his worst was before he broke out. Remember his fever started on Monday afternoon, and first showed signs of rash early Friday morning. They started out real fine, but later bunched together till they were about the size of a dime in places. It started on his face and traversed his body. They never did get very thick on his back, but he had quite a lot on his arms and legs, and we called him that measly kid. I had to show him how he looked in the mirror. For the most part he behaved marvelously, entertained himself, and wasn't very demanding. I often think I don't give him credit for being the good, really good kid he is. Thank you for the donation for his entertainment, but you are right, he has a great many toys, and does not lack for entertainment, so I shall instead sock it away in his bank account. We'll send the clothes sizes at some future date, but not right now. Hilma seems to have her hands full. If you wrote me, I'll have to look at these other letters. Was it a boy or girl? What did she name it? Where do they live now? Mama, I've still got those secret pal cards to send out. We'll try to do so soon. Aunt Rosanna, I'll try to answer your letter soon, and we'll see what I can concoct for a Mother's Day poem. You flatter me. Sister, could you use those shoes I sent? And did the kids receive the egg? Florence, I'm expecting a letter from you just any day now, and surely you won't disappoint me. Frank, you dead? Jean, I'll try to answer your letters better soon, but you see, when I write to the folks and the general news, I've usually got a heavy letter and no time left. Love to all of you. Mama, you look after Papa, and Papa, you look after Mama, and come here, so I can look after you both. Love to all.
Sometimes with these letters, when she writes to Frank, you dead, that was funny. She writes to Aunt Rosanna, I'll try to answer your letter soon and see what I can concoct for a Mother's Day poem. So she did write a Mother's Day poem. Does she want to, she's asking her to write another one?
Guess so. Yeah. They're enjoying the poetry. Well, at least, you know what? Aunt Rosanna dialed in. Aunt Rosanna has like sort of come out of nowhere as one of the people who's receiving the letters. We don't really see much from Aunt Rosanna. Rosanna is one of Laura's sisters. So this is not on the Demery side. This is the Schuler side. That's Shuler. And I think we actually have some pictures. Oh, you know what we do? There's a couple of things actually to take a look at from the last part of this letter. And I'm going to go to the Love Sweetie podcast website here. Yeah. Because I want us to take a look at this to put some faces to some names that we're hearing. I think that's important. So, and these are already on the website. If you go to the Love Sweetie podcast website, as I'm doing here, and you go to Sweetie's scrapbook, and you go to the photos, I believe we have Aunt Rosanna in here. Now, I could be completely wrong, but if you go to the Demery family 1940s and earlier, this is, I think I added this. If not, I will. Yeah, the Schuler family, Laura's parents. So Laura, we see here on the right, of course, when she was much younger. She's in her 20s at this point, mid-20s. But this is the Schuler family. And we can see that Sarah Rosanna Schuler is, I believe, on the right side. So this is young. So you can see how much she looks like Laura. Laura's in the center here.
That's Laura. The Laura's the tallest one.
Yeah, Laura's the tall one in the middle in the back row here. Now on her left is Cordia Bell. So that is, yeah, and William Henry. Now her mother is Dow here. This is Sweetie's grandmother, on the maternal grandmother. So we get to identify everybody. She actually did identify everybody. We can tell from other photos and things who is who. But on the right, that's the Aunt Rosanna. So Sarah Rosanna Schuler there. But this is the Schuler family. And the Dow is the other surname that's going to be previous. So Laura's parents were Henry. Right, yes. If I get this right. Yes. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, Henry C. Schuler sits in front with John Jasper. Notice I love the outfits. This is going back a while now, because this is from about 1910. And then we get to see Hannah Lucetta Dow, who was his wife and Sweetie's grandmother on the Schuler side. But yeah, it's nice to see the siblings together. I think we probably do have in the collection somewhere of an older photo, but you can see the family resemblance for sure. And now she is on the receiving end of Sweetie's letters and clearly keeping up a correspondence with Sweetie. So that's there, and I encourage people to take a look at the Demerys. This is the album marked for our audio listeners. If you're on the galleries, it's the Demery family 1940s and earlier. It's the second photo. Now, we can see them as children, too. That's the first photo. That's Sweetie's grandmother in front, and then in the back are Sarah and our Laura as well. So, I'm sorry, we have Cordia Bell. That's the other one. Yeah, Cordia Bell, William Henry, the son, Lorenzo Clark, and Laura. So.
Okay, yeah. So this is
the little one, the little girl in the front. That's Aunt Rosanna.
And these are from the early 1900s.
This one's from the late 1800s.
This one's from the late 1800s.
Yeah, this seems to be 1895 or so. Just based on ages of where everybody should be. I was able to work out the date on this one as the late 1890s. Yeah.
They definitely took the opportunity and and put forth the effort to get these family photos made.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Was this typical to do this to get your family? Because this to me would seem like a luxury.
It's very expensive. The other thing is we can start to tell that the photographs are not taking as long to take. Back when photography started, most people were frowning all the time because it took a lot of time to do a photo and they couldn't hold a smile, which is why I think half of them are just kind of looking straight forward and not smiling. You always get that thing that says smile for the camera. They're not. But we can tell the photography is sped up some because her grandmother and then I think Catherine in the back there kind of have a little bit of a smile that they're able to maintain. So the speed is faster. But that's why they're all just kind of looking forward, like, okay, they probably just said stare at the camera. That's it. And we see Rosanna kind of glancing as a little girl. She looks to be about maybe 7 in this photo. Yeah. So that's how we can tell the date of the photos. We can get the approximate dates of the children, and we know when they were born. So everyone's dressed to the nines, though. Look at all this tailored clothing. Yep.
It is rather remarkable. to
Mhm.
have these like older pictures
Yeah.
and be able to like look back and see what these people look like.
Yeah.
And of course,
There's
like not
more.
now. This is
Mhm.
definitely not now. But
Yeah.
you know, to have a name and a face.
Right. Yeah. And we do have ones that are prior to this. I believe we do have her great grandparents in another photo. It's very rare. That's when we're getting into like daguerreotypes and things like that. But they do exist for this family, and we're fortunate to have them, of course. And then this proceeds into the fun photos of the Demery children and things. It's an order, so but you get to see. This is how we're basically being able to backdate the album there. So, but moving into the next letter, we get into May. We're now in May of 1952. Oh, the spring is springing so much now. Sweetie's outside even more, and she's going to catch us up. Oh, by the way, I needed to insert this real quick before we get into the May. We've got mention of sulfa and stuff like that. Insert disclaimer here.
Special disclaimer. The medicines and other medical treatments noted in these historical letters from the 1950s are specific to Sweetie's story and might not be recommended today, or are even more regulated than they were so many years ago. As such, none of the medical information contained within these letters is to be construed as medical advice. Talk to your doctor. Thank you for your attention to this message. Now, back to the show.
Okay, and we're back now to May of 1952.
363 North Main Street, Doylestown, Pennsylvania, May 1st, 1952. Dear Mama and Papa and everyone else, happy first day of May to you too. It is a lovely day here today after having had 6 days of constant rain. As you no doubt heard over the radio and news reports, we had 6 days of constant rain, and the 7th day was as cloudy and dreary as it could be. Might as well have rained, though it didn't. I cut out a clipping from the paper telling about it, but it seems to have gotten lost at the moment at least. This day is such a contrast that I shall just have to get out and do some weeding and cleaning up. Lou cut the grass last night, and so there is much needs doing, so I hope you'll not feel I've neglected you too badly if I sort of cut this short and get outside to work. I rather welcomed the bad weather since I've been having so much trouble with ivy poisoning again. I guess I got it from the bed of creeping ivy I dug out the other day. I've had it all up my left arm and into my armpit, where I guess I pulled up a falling strap and spread it there. It is getting pretty well cleared up now, and I'm about ready to go out and get the next dose of it. The trouble is that I can't find it by the leaf as they aren't out yet, but by pulling up roots and weeds. Get poisoned from the roots I can't identify. Will it ever end? I believe I wrote you that Marguerite and Joe were to come over Friday night, didn't I? I know I wrote you that I went over on Thursday to help G-Mom clean up and do the laundry and corral those house apes for a while. I brought her ironing over and did that early Friday morning, and then Friday night we took the ironed clothes and her laundry over to her and waited late to see Marguerite and Joe for a few minutes when they got in. Saturday I did some chores around the house, but not a great deal. Believe I wrote you on Friday and mailed the letters out on Sunday, didn't I? Well, Lou had the duty Saturday night and wasn't home, so I went to bed early and got a fairly decent night's rest. Sunday afternoon we went over for dinner, and I gave Marguerite a home permanent. Her hair curls easily, and I left it up a little too long, but she seemed real pleased with it, and it wasn't near the chore to give, as it is to give Jean one. As a girl I used to know would say, she only has one hair split 4 ways, where Jean has so many trillion more. It didn't take long, and though I would rather have been hit in the head rather than start it, it wasn't such a bad job and soon done. We went over again on Monday, which was Lou's day off, and got them, and brought them over here for chilly supper, and then took them to a sale, and on to their train. Marguerite had little rest, as she had to help with the laundry. Usually she expects to be a lady of leisure on a long weekend, but this time she had to wash baby clothes and bottles and dishes until she was probably darn good and glad to get back to New York and the grind at Macy's. Joe had to report on Tuesday morning to start making a one-reel movie for New York State. Something about race tolerance, I think. Won't last long, but it brings him $55 per day as long as it does last. Lou offered my services again as we were preparing to leave, so on Wednesday, yesterday, I sent Louis's lunch to school and dashed over to Norristown again to do 2 big laundries for G-Mom, and then after supper last night, Elizabeth called to say they were home, and it is a darn good thing, too, because I'm about on my own last legs with so much dashing around. I shall have to take a Dexy today, if I'm to accomplish anything other than dusting the chair seats with the seat of my dress. G-Mom is ready for a rest cure any time now. I wonder she has stood those kids at all. She looked tired, and I felt sorry for her. I hope Elizabeth and Bob will give her a chance to rest up now, before they start their usual round of gadding.
What's gadding mean?
I think it's like gabbing. It's more of like just gossip, but let me check it. That doesn't, the
Because
usual
you know
round
how they
of
like
gadding.
to go, they like to go out.
Yeah, I think it's like social stuff.
Yeah.
Wandering or roaming about aimlessly, restlessly, or in search of pleasure. So it's like puttering, but without purpose and not about nature. You know,
So
at
it's
all.
a puttering to like pleasure. It's a puttering to like do things that you enjoy. So like
Mhm.
going bowling and going
Yep.
to fancy parties.
Yeah. Mhm.
Whatever else they do. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, okay, gadding, that's interesting. See, I just love the vocabulary. That's one of the funnest parts of this whole thing. So, poor Marguerite, why did they have so much? She should really stop putting those dresses on that baby.
Yep, that's what it's coming down to. It's just all of the little minutiae that Elizabeth that did is insisting on, and it's creating all this additional work. Marguerite can't get a break. She's working. She works at Macy's. Joe's working. Speaking of Joe, so for any new listeners, of course, Joe's the actor, and he's being paid. And I think this is so fascinating what he's working on, right? What he's being paid daily. We hear about. I'm going to bring that back up onto mine here. What did they call it? Joe had to report on Tuesday morning. Won't last long, but it brings him $55 per day as long as it does last. And they're starting to make a one reel movie for New York State, something about race tolerance, I think. This is the first mention we really have of this, that we start to notice the beginning of the civil rights movement. And we have to give credit where credit is due. A lot of people, when we think about civil rights, we think about the 60s. We don't think about the early 50s. Because we're not yet sort of in those Kennedy times. This is far before Martin Luther King, right? And we are going to tackle some of these subjects as Sweetie's watching the news as things come about. But it's interesting to me that Joe is in this movie about race tolerance in New York, and that's what he's working on. And we're reminded that really the first president to really tackle the issue was Harry Truman. And this gets forgotten in the bigger concept, because of all the big speeches that happened in the 60s and the Civil Rights Amendment and things like that. It was Truman that was the first president to really focus in on this, especially from the South. And remember, he's from Missouri. He's coming from a border state, going back to the Civil War. Missouri, this is not an easy thing for him to tackle because he's really perceived as a Southerner in this sense. But one thing to note about a couple things Truman did, and we hadn't commented on them at the time when they were going on, but there are things to look at, and I think, Jamie, it would be worth us exploring this probably in a bonus video about Truman and looking at the McCullough book on it as well. He had a committee on civil rights as early as 1946. He gave a historic address to Congress in 1948. So he is the very first president to introduce a civil rights program to Congress. He was talking about anti-lynching laws, voting rights protections, and permanent Fair Employment Practices Commission. The same year, 1948, Truman desegregates through an executive order the military. He banned discriminatory hiring in the federal government because there used to be separate units. So he's the one that does it. And then concurrently with the desegregation of the military, he also establishes a Fair Employment Board to eliminate racial discrimination in federal workforce. So he's making the moves. He's not remembered as much for this because it's not as flashy as what we're going to see in a lot of the news that gets covered. But the fact that Joe's working on this movie, so now this is 4 years after Truman is doing this, Truman's still president, you have to wonder what film that was that he was working on. Was it something in New York sort of pushed by the federal government in a major city like New York to get the agenda moving and to head into civil rights? Again, we're going to get into those subjects later, but it's important to bring up at this point.
Well, I could see maybe some monies that was designated towards that kind of program, so that would have to be used for like, for this kind of thing. I think it's very good to talk about these different things that we don't hear about. This is not something I ever learned in school. And of course, if history was, it's a fascinating subject because it's stories, and I do enjoy that part. I do enjoy the stories part of it, but I've never really delved into it like we're doing now. And Truman is remembered as the president who dropped the bombs on Japan. So that is his legacy. It's good to see other aspects of Truman's presidency, because you don't hear about those other things. And this is something I definitely like. I have not read the Truman book yet. I read excerpts,
sections of it, yeah.
But I definitely want to read it when we're finished with all of this and we move on to the next president, who's the next president?
We're about to get into Eisenhower administration.
Oh man. Oh man. This is gonna be fun.
Hey, Doylestown. Spoiler alert, Doylestown was Republican at this time. So
man, you're gonna ruffle some feathers. Don't be ruffling feathers. But it's good to learn these things, because this is parts of history where people don't know that that's how far back the efforts were going. They think about the 60s as where, but it's like, no, this wheel was put in motion. It just wasn't moving very fast.
Right. Yeah. And it gets missed so much. I wanted to make a point to bring this up because I've listened to so many of David McCullough's lectures, him being the author, and he brings this up. I think he was speaking at a Kennedy. He was talking at like one of the dedications of something at the Kennedy Center, if I recall correctly, which lecture it was at. And it was on the subject of civil rights. And he's talking about Truman. Like, Truman did this. I mean, can you imagine what that was like to desegregate the military going into Korea? And which he's remembered for Korea. Things get the domestic policy. There's a lot of strikes going on and things like that. But this is essential. This is like the building blocks. This is the cornerstone on which the others are going to go forward for civil rights. But it absolutely starts with Harry Truman. So,
well, having that would be an issue which you would be experiencing a very substantial pushback.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like think about Miss Darst. And how angry it makes her that they're filling in the well. Now think about a bunch of people who are incredibly angry that they're going to be changing the way that they operate, because this is a huge change for a lot of people. I mean, up north, it's different. You have there's still some kind of like there's still these ideas that people hold in their head. And a lot of that comes from, upbringing and stuff like that. But you're getting more people who are like, well, why should that matter?
Right.
A person's character needs to matter more. So this is really cool. But I can imagine that he probably was like, you know what? Everybody hates me anyway.
He's going for stuff. He's getting what he knows to be right is done. And that, regardless if we agree with one thing or the other that he did, he was a man of character and he was a man of principle. And that's why I have a huge amount of respect for Harry Truman. And, the thing is, I was thinking back to like the Civil War is, I know, and that might be not as tasteful. It depends on really the perspective we have on Truman with certain things. But I think some things were right. And with regards to Truman, we think back to Lincoln. And this is the first time that the federal government hires Union troops that are Black. He creates the United States Colored Troop, the USCT. And we do have to remember, it's not like they were always separate from the white troops, because the commissioned officers of those regiments were white, the non-commissioned officers were Black, and then it was Black troops. That was the structure. But not a lot of time, 60 years have passed, not a lot of time has passed, and here comes Harry Truman saying, we're done. So at least it took less than 100 years to get there, for like the beginning of bringing the Black troops officially into the military, to desegregation of the military. But, it's an important part of our history to definitely cover.
Papa, I shall not take the time again today to go through your letters and questionnaire, but will do so when I've had a chance to do a few items outside and can settle myself for some decent answers. I hate to have Mama walking up to the post office and have her come home empty-handed, as far as I'm concerned at least, and so wanted to get a brief letter off to her for that reason. I do want to tell you that the iris are beginning to look like young giants. Don't see a bloom started yet, but the green spears are so pretty. But I just must get out and pull some weeds before they get too badly choked. Since the sun is out today, I'm going to get the rosemoss seed planted and hope it will keep warm enough to germinate. I ought to get down in the well and lift out some bricks as we are piling up our fill debris from all over the yard around the mouth of the well, and it does make a sorry sight for the neighbors. I wonder if I've the gumption to make me do it. All the little maple trees I missed are in full leaf glory, and stick up like sore thumbs, and after the rains, while the ground is wet, I should get out and pull another couple trillion. As they are such rigid stems, the lawnmower doesn't out them. Besides, they need to be uprooted. Oh, there just isn't any end to what needs to be done. And I haven't even been out to see if the garden I planted has all washed away. Jean, I shall have to delay answering your letters, too, for a while longer, but hope you'll continue to increase the pile waiting to be answered. I'll have to set aside a day and write to all of you in detail. Sister, I'm about ready to jerk your carbon. I haven't heard from you or Florence or Frank's whether any of you received the eggs for the kids, and you surely should have written whether the shoes were suitable for you. I know you've lots of outside work to do too, but so have I, and if I can take time to write, even short letters, you can too. Didn't you write that Bill bought a typewriter? Don't you use that? I'm going to be filling out some statements with blocks for you to check, whether you are dead or not, if you don't write soon. Florence, I've already threatened you to jerk your carbon if you don't write, but since I must write you a birthday note, I just didn't have the heart to do it this time. But I'm going to, if you don't write to me too. Did you receive the egg I sent for the kids? If you can't write, you'd better get KM to do it for you. She writes nice letters, though short, and I'd rather have a short one than none. Frank and Maida, you too. I haven't had a letter from you since Frank wrote me the kids were sick back in March and sent me their illness scoreboard. Neither of you acknowledged the poem I wrote for their entertainment or their egg. Maybe you need a stamp. I'll send you one. Aunt Rosanna, I shall have to beg your indulgence also in getting a good answer written to this letter from you containing the kids' pictures. I am flattered by your request for the poems for Mother's Day, but somehow they just didn't gel very well. I'm sending you two, neither of which I like very much, but perhaps you'll have time to find one more suitable for your club work than these. They are strictly few, and I haven't the courage to send them to the other members of the family. I should like very much to have a copy of the poem you wrote, and not only would I really like to have it, if I ask you for it as a special favor, I'll also get another nice newsy letter from you, and that is well worthwhile too, for my money. I suppose since I've given you all a good rake for not writing, I'll get a whole mailbox full to mail at noon. So I'll stop and get busy looking ashamed a little in advance. Love to all of you. Sweetie.
So that was really lovely. I enjoyed that. She's given it to everybody for not writing her.
Absolutely, she is. Mm-hmm.
And this is like, we've heard about this question. So the first time we heard about this questionnaire was Dr. Chester wrote, we should write her a questionnaire. And then he did. And now she's been talking about it and she still hasn't answered it.
She still hasn't answered it. I am happy to report that the questionnaire is coming up very soon in some future episodes. She is going to get to this questionnaire. She keeps reminding herself by writing this. She's like, I know I have to get to this. I know I have to get to this. Doylestown listeners, Chester's really curious about what Doylestown is like, and because he needs to visit, honestly. That's the best way for him to find out. But she's going to give some facts. And I believe I could do a little preview by just giving one question. I'm not going to give the answer, but if you're wondering the kinds of things, here we go. Oh, this is appropriate because we were talking about how the kids were frogging around in Norristown. Question 17. Okay, it's a big... This is why she hasn't gotten to it yet. Do you hear any frogs around there now? And she writes a paragraph as a response about if she's hearing the frogs around Doylestown. So, yep.
It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So,
and I know it feels like we should be done, but we're not. Because Sweetie is in her poet phase. And so, and I have to tell you right now, she's getting really good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why Rosanna wants some more. So we actually have 2 poems for this episode. They're in 2 separate videos. We'll comment after each poem. So here's the first one that she writes at the end of this letter.
My friend. I have a little teddy bear. He's the best old friend I know. I've loved him ever since the day we met and said hello. That first day, in his fleecy coat, I brought him home with me, and called in all the kids I know, so that one and all might see. One eye is gone, it cannot see. He doesn't seem to care, but smiles and even winks at me as I drag him everywhere. His fleecy coat is not so nice as once it used to be. The moths got in and chewed at him. It makes me sad to see. He's never bad nor cross with me. He's still my favorite toy. There's just no truer, finer friend than a teddy bear for a boy.
Of course, we know from a previous episode, Lewis had wanted to write a poem about teddy bears.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And then Sweetie got stuck rhyming everything. And she's like, no, like, make it rhyme. So Sweetie wound up writing it. This is the outcome. So we do actually get that poem. So flashback to the previous episode. But then the second poem, I think, just takes the cake.
So good.
Eat, dear. Aw, Mom, I just ain't hungry. This from that boy of mine, though I try to pick his favorite dish and cook it up just fine. Please eat it, dear, it's good for you. That's how I coax at home. But if we try a quick bite out, now that appetite can roam. I thought perhaps a hamburger and soda, something light, and then I would not have to coax and plead with all my might. No, he orders up a full blue plate, enough to feed a man. At home he couldn't make a dent, but when we pay, he can. From appetizer to dessert, I'd like to wring his neck. Or even worse, it just might be, I'll make him pay the check.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
I really like that one. That was a good one.
Yeah. I think we should stick to that. I'll make him pay the check. Title for this episode, that was the original title that we were debating for this one. I think it's appropriate also because we're talking about people going out, and it just kind of full circles with Dick going out at the beginning. You know,
it really does. It does.
Yeah.
And it's true. And it's funny. Like, it's true. When they are out, they'll eat everything. At home, I'm hungry. It's true.
Yeah.
But that's why I really liked it, because I could relate to it. And I think she's just getting really good. Like, just with these poems are just getting even better. I think that I know that she kind of had something to work off with, My Friend, but she did a good job rhyming it.
Yeah. Yeah. She's just good. And, you know, this is pretty much the conclusion of a lot of her phase that she's going through. At first, she's doing it just to keep her father entertained.
Yeah.
Trying to keep him in Des Moines. Like, and things like that. And we heard about some that we never get to see. Keep looking for them in the collection if they come up, because we know what they're about, the Looking Glass and stuff like that. But I think now we've had a solid like 6 or 7 poems, and they're all pretty great. So I don't think I could have done much better, nor would I have tried. So, but that's it for today's episode. Next week, we're going to continue into May. Next week, we're going to start with Sweetie, but then we've got some Chester content, and some pretty serious Chester content. We've got not just 1, not just 2, but 3 postcards from Chester, followed by a letter that Chester writes to his other daughter, Lizzie. So if you're in it for the nature, the gardening, everything that's going on in Lacona, what Chester's up to, that's going to be next week's episode.
Are we including that Chester letter?
Yeah.
We are going to include that Chester letter.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
It's going to be a heck of an episode, you guys.
Yep. See you next week.